Hello, my name's Ben.
And my name is Josh.
And welcome back to FPL Graduates. Welcome back to another game week. Yes, they're coming thick and fast. And yes, that every single week, it seems to be getting more outrageous of what's going on in the FPL world and what's going on in the Premier League. There's injuries galore. There's postponements galore. An FPL manager's worst nightmare, or for some managers, maybe you could say they're weird, loving it.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy, isn't it, this week? Spurs, obviously, their COVID case, crazy. Postponed potentially 2 of their next games in the Premier League, which is crazy. Obviously, they have Burnley postponed as well. So anyone with Spurs assets should probably feel robbed in the last few weeks because they've missed so many games. We've had Tony, a high-owned striker, he's out as well. Brighton will not play this weekend as well. So it's going to be a lot of highly owned players missing for FPL managers this week.
Yeah, I think if you manage to not take a hit, you could be looking at quite a nice rank rise before a ball has even been kicked. And it's a very interesting one to see. And we'll get more sort of into game week 16 and the sort of ramifications that could be as a result of taking -4s for players that you know aren't playing. We'll get straight into what happened last week in game week 15. Let's get straight into my one. And so my team last week is here. 50 points, as you can see. It was started off really, really badly with that Chelsea clean sheet wipe out on the double up, 1 point between the two of them. But as the game week went on, it got a bit better. And on Sunday, that's where we gained the points. Greater, again, honestly, unlucky to lose the clean sheet. I know United were playing really well, but it was that one really good piece of magic from Fred that's beaten him in the end. And to be honest, for myself and for owners out there, I wouldn't be too concerned because, it's either you got Ramsdale or Sanchez at this point, and then, around there, there's you sort of Ramsdale. Is he getting the clean sheets right now? Arsenal are a bit up and down at the moment. We don't know which Arsenal are going to turn up. So it's not too much of a concern, goalkeepers at the moment. They're not massively performing this season in general. But yeah, disappointing Chelsea backline. I'm really not liking how I've got 2 of them in there, especially with their midweek showing as well. Trent Alexander-Arnold, I mean, he has to be in everyone's team by now. Same could go for Cancelo. Disappointing that they didn't keep the clean sheet, but we move. Livramento came in off the bench. Had a few people come off my bench this week. Rafinha and Son were the 2 saviours that meant that I got a 1k green arrow or something ridiculous like that. So the Son 13 points definitely saved my week. That is for sure. Salah with a last-minute return to keep the streak going. Unbelievable. And Josh King, another one that came off my bench for Smith Rowe and Tony, who we now know are out. So, overall, I've got 3 players that are sort of flagged /out that I would want to play. So it's not the worst place to be in. It's not the best either. We'll go into your team, Josh, from last week before we go and talk about our moves coming up to game week 16. Talk us through how you went, Josh.
Yeah, so it's a bit similar to you, to be fair. I scored a 53 this week.
Yeah.
Again, Sanchez in goal, 3-pointer. He's probably been outperforming Guaita the last few weeks, but he's now probably not going to play this weekend, which is frustrating. No Ben Foster as well, because he's obviously injured with that groin injury. Reece James and Alonso, 1 point between them. Like you mentioned, it was a bit gutting at the weekend. But they just didn't play well, Chelsea. They gave away, I think, 2 of those goals just to pure mistakes. So they didn't really deserve to get anything out of that game. Trent, 9-pointer, he's doing well as well. Nearly 100% owned pretty much at my rank. We did creep inside the top 10k this week, but with what my team's looking like, I doubt it's going to be able to stay that way. Cancelo, again, City losing the clean sheet near the end, really. Such an annoying goal that bounced off the post and then came back to him. But we will have to move on that one. Son, 13 points. He's leaving the team in style because I think everyone was probably going to keep him for this week if they played Brighton. Brighton with 8 injuries themselves. So it's sort of a blessing in disguise for them. Rafinha with a 5. He seems to just be constantly returning, just those one haul every week, which is good. Can't complain. Jota with a 3. How he missed that chance, I will absolutely never know. He just has to slot it either side of those defenders and he gets his goal. Salah, again, like you mentioned, the last minute haul. We love to see it. He's only played once out of 15 game weeks this season. Like, insane numbers. Like I was saying on the TikTok live, if someone said to me at the start of the season, you can have a captain who only blanks once, I'll be like, yes, immediately. Sancho was the transfer in for Conor Gallagher. In hindsight, it's probably weren't the best move. Obviously, he was taken off at 60. He did play well, I thought, when I was watching him, but again, there could be quite a bit of rotation in United team. It also leaves me a bit muddied for this upcoming week. So a lot of my money was pushed into that transfer, about 3 million. So it's not looked great considering all the postponements, etc. Dennis came off the bench. This week he didn't return though, which is annoying. The other weeks he's been scoring on my bench. So he came in for 2. And then we had Tony, who obviously came off because he had COVID. And then Livramento with a 2-pointer as well. So not too bad. I obviously got into the top 10K, so I'm buzzing with it. But yeah, it's just one of those weeks where, like, because of what's happened after it, it's just like, ugh, what's going on now?
Yeah, it's not often that like a game week branded not very good has been the highlight of the sort of past 7 days. In fact, like the news that, you know, the Spurs Brighton game's now off officially. That's going to mean a lot of transfers out for Son. So it's just a case now of whether, you know, I want to make my transfers now or whether I want to make them tomorrow. Josh, do you want to talk through while you got your team up what you're thinking for next week?
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to come into this. So this is the team that I could probably field on its own next week. So obviously Sanchez won't be playing due to the postponement because of Spurs. So I'm without a keeper at best next week unless I make a transfer. It's a back 5 at the minute. Obviously, these are just players that can play, which is actually a benefit. And then midfield of Sancho, Salah, Jota and Rafinha. Dennis is playing up top. On the bench, it's literally Son and Davis, Tony as well. And then, like I mentioned, Foster's out with the injury. Son's out with the COVID. Davis won't play. Tony's out with COVID. So there's going to have to be transfers. Sort of trying to target Ronaldo. I think it's a bit OTT having Sancho and Ronaldo, but I really wanted him anyway before last game week as well. Which couldn't really afford him, especially with Son also returning that mega haul. But now Son's going to be out for maybe 2 games. I think you just got to make the most of it. I think it's worth taking a -4 when I think that United have 2 unbelievable fixtures, Norwich and Brentford away. Probably 2 of the best fixtures you can ask for. So I think I need to make the most of it. I can do Son and Tony to Ronaldo and Sissoko, I think, or something along those lines. But I'm debating whether to take another -4 for the keeper, just because obviously Sanchez isn't going to play this week, and then their fixtures aren't great. Brighton, they've got Wolves at home, United away, Brentford at home, Chelsea away, Everton away. They're difficult games, and they've also not been keeping that many clean sheets in the previous weeks. They've been drawing 1-1 the last couple of weeks. Sanchez has actually been getting save points, which is what's been getting him a few more points in Guaita. So yeah, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts, Ben. Like, what are you going to do with those Spurs players?
I mean, it's a difficult position to be with you know the one free transfer that you've got available. So, you know, trying to target Ronaldo when you've already got Sancho is kind of, I don't know whether that's overkill or not. It's kind of, you know, where you've put your money in Sancho and you've kind of already like made that play last week where, you know, you're almost double backing on yourself if you do go Ronaldo. But yeah, it's Ronaldo. He could, you know, bully the sort of teams that are lower down. We all know he loves stat padding against those sort of teams. So it's almost like, you know, too good of an opportunity maybe to miss on is Norwich away, where Ronaldo could really do a lot of damage. But yeah, like the team, the starting 11, it looks really strong in general. Like there's not too many complaints about that. Concern is maybe for Reece James playing a full 90, but Chelsea have lots of injuries as well. So let's not forget that. Reece James has proven that he can play a multitude of positions. So yeah, like there's a couple of fires to put out on that team for sure. But you know, it's just working out what would be the best strategy, whether it is just to take that -4 and kind of think, is the keeper transfer worth that extra sort of hit? You're then relying on them to get a minimum sort of 4 points straight off the bat. So yeah, it's a difficult call to make. I'm certainly glad that I'm sort of not in that position where I've only got the one transfer.
Yes, that was the thing. Like, obviously, I was going to save it, but because I was going to the United game, I was like, I've got to have a United player.
Yeah.
It was one of those ones where real life sort of overtakes FPL. Because if I weren't going to it, I wouldn't have made the transfer. No way. But I knew something like that would happen. Sancho getting dragged at 60 isn't ideal either. He seems like the first replaceable one, if that makes sense. And Ragnick seems to be playing a lot with like Elanga. He came on, which I was surprised about. We haven't seen him at all under Ollie in any sort of Premier League games. So he seems to be trusting in the youth, which is good in one way, but terrible in FPL because we're going to see a bit of rotation up top, I think, for those United boys.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We'll go then into sort of my thoughts. What I'm going to do for my team this week. It's a little bit more straightforward, I believe. So that's my team from last week. Let's get the team for this week. So this is how we're looking right now. It looks mudded, doesn't it? But there is a couple of things that I'm thinking here. So we're thinking to take out Tony and take out Son and to bring in Ronaldo and Jared Bowen of West Ham. I really like Jared Bowen's underlyings. They look really good. And, you know, I kind of need that West Ham man in. Last week, I had the 2 free transfers. I used one of them in anticipation of going up to a Ronaldo. So I went from Antonio to King. And then, you know, in anticipation of having 2 free transfers and kind of making my decisions then. I mean, we couldn't have foreseen that like all of this was going to happen midweek and all these sort of COVID cases were going to pick up. So it's a lucky call from me, I'd say. Obviously, Smith Rowe potentially out as well, but I'm kind of happy to keep him in for now. I don't think it's too serious. I think it's just a little bit of burnout from him playing games. So I'm more than happy if it is the case for Rudiger to come off my bench and sort of play instead of him. And that might be the call that I make sort of going forwards is just to put Rudiger in there and just be safe with it. So yeah, I'm quite happy and content with my team. Son to Bowen, like I said, and Tony to Ronaldo is easy move to do in 2 moves. So yeah, that's how the team is going to look sort of come tomorrow. Whether I make the transfers now or not, it remains to be seen. I know Tony is due a price fall maybe tonight. I think that's definitely on the card. So I might pull the trigger early. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, they're literally like the easiest transfers you could make in FPL history, I think. 2 players that aren't playing for 2 players that have got great fixture swings and are in decent form. But yeah, I think if Spurs didn't postpone, you'd have a harder decision to make because Son looks really good. He was involved in everything their last 2 games. So what would you have done? Would you have kept Son if he weren't postponed?
So it was unlikely that I was going to keep him in, if I'm being honest. But I think the decision that I made last week has kind of really helped me. The decision I was like 50-50 in between was Antonio to King to free up the funds or Rudiger to Reguilon to free up some more like funds and maybe go for a cheaper midfielder option. I ended up going with the King option. Yes, I lost the 5 points in Antonio, but I've kind of gained 4 points from not having to take a hit now to bring in the lads that I want to bring in. So, you know, I'm pretty happy with that, pretty settled. And yeah, I'm kind of thinking now I'll probably make the transfers tonight and just save that, you know, 0.1 that Tony's going to drop.
Yeah, I definitely think they're good moves. With Smith Rowe, are you worried about him in any way? Because he's obviously missed quite a few games now. I think it's like 2 or 3, I think. So it seems like a bit of a problem with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one because I don't really want to be taking a hit this week, and I feel like it's not severe enough to warrant the transfer out. I think we'll see what happens tomorrow in the press conferences. I should assume he'd be okay, and it's kind of now thinking, should I hold those transfers and wait? But you know, those Son and Tony, we know are 100% out for sure. So I think it's probably safer for me to transfer out those that I know are definitely out rather than Smith Rowe, who could, you know, feature off the bench or something like that at the weekend. I wouldn't be disheartened if he only got a 1-pointer this week and sort of people got rid of him and he becomes more of a differential going forwards for a few good Arsenal games that are coming up.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely a good asset, and also taking him out, there's just not many people now left at that £5.5 million price, because they've all risen to 6.
Exactly.
So it is hard to get a replacement. I think Demarai Gray is probably the only player I was looking at, and even then he's just so hot and cold. Like 1 minute he'll score twice, and the next he's just absolutely just goes cold, doesn't he? So it's an interesting one. We'll take some questions from the comments now. And get through a load. Jota apparently didn't train today. I've seen this comment a couple of times. Have you seen that about? Because I actually haven't seen it anywhere.
I haven't seen it about either. To be honest, I've only just got in from work and that sort of thing, so I haven't been on my phone looking at Twitter. I mean, might have to just wait until the press conferences. It's a difficult one.
You'd have to start Livramento, I presume, if he was benched or whatever.
Yeah, Livramento away to Arsenal would have to start then. It just depends the extent of the injury, doesn't it? Really, if he's out for an extended period, then it's really not ideal. And Liverpool, you might want to get him out a little bit sooner rather than later. But obviously, it's rumours at the moment, so we can't sort of confirm it. It might be a case now for me, seeing the news, seeing a lot of rumours on Twitter. I have just gone on and it is within the sort of the last 5 minutes, everyone started piping up about it. So yeah, we'll see.
That's even more mudded news for my team, to be honest, which is great. Dion says, are we ready for the FPL Cup? So if you didn't know, the FPL Cup does start this week. There's 8 million players in it. I don't know what your opponent is, Ben, but I think mine's about 3 or 5 millionth in the world. He has a decent team, though. What's your opponent? Have you checked?
I'm just looking now. How do you find out where he's placed?
You have to go on I think you have to go at leagues and then cups or something like that. No, to find where they are, it's on the website, I think. So
okay, I'm just gonna have a look now. Josh, do you want to talk through sort of the game week 16 stats and that sort of thing? Whilst I'm looking for my opponent.
Yeah, we'll get them up now. It's going to be interesting to check these out because obviously we check them out in the last 5 or so game weeks to see who's been performing. Obviously, Ben mentioned earlier that Jarrod Bowen's underlying stats, and he'll definitely be in this list. He's been performing really well for West Ham. Scored a great goal against Chelsea as well. So we'll get it up in a second if you bear with me. Here we go. So if we put it up, there we go. So in these stats, basically, we're just checking out the last 5 game weeks and basically their non-penalty expected goals. Sorry. So the guy we've been talking about, Jota, is top 3.27. I'm sure that one-on-one with 2 defenders in goal was a high chance of that. Can't believe he didn't score. Obviously, the 3 Liverpool attackers headlined the last 5 game weeks, all with over 3 non-penalty expected goals. So that is really interesting to see. Especially with maybe their lack of being any attackers. I'm surprised a lot of people haven't gone with Mane and Salah because they've both been playing really well this season. It's sort of a big differential pick as well. Harvey Barnes is up there at 6.5, which is a decent differential shout to Bowen. I think a lot of people will go to Bowen, but he's been also scoring. Leicester not maybe performing as well as West Ham, but he's been scoring some goals. Aubameyang's in there. Benteke, again, he's had loads of big chances, but maybe not scoring them. Same with Aubameyang. Bernardo Silva and Gundogan, that's interesting. Bernardo coming out just on top. Obviously, Phil Foden, I think, is confirmed to be out this weekend. He hasn't been in training either. And then Ronaldo, Ben's transfer in this week, coming in at 10th spot of 2.22 expected goals. Is there anyone you thought that maybe should be in that list? Obviously, it's only the top 10, but anyone who's been performing well who isn't there?
I mean, I wouldn't have expected Barnes to be in there to begin with. I think that's a bit of a surprise to me. And Aubameyang as well is a bit of a surprise that he's sort of included. The interesting one maybe is Rafinha, maybe to not be sort of in the top 10. I think that's an interesting one. Obviously, there's a lot of big players that, haven't played a lot of minutes this season. Lukaku, De Bruyne, those sorts of players who haven't actually played too many minutes. So, it'd be interesting to see if over the next few game weeks as they get fitter, whether they start pushing that top 10 in terms of non-penalty XG.
Yeah, definitely. I think if Jota's out, it's going to be a big miss for FPL players because I wouldn't say there's anyone of that sort of level when someone comes into the team, because there's obviously the City midfielders, but no one plays that advanced as Jota does. So he's an absolute bargain, and I'll be gutted if he is out because it's yet another issue for my team. I'm looking so poor this week; it's not going to be a good one. So yeah, we'll have to wait out and see for that. With Bowen, would you think he's the best 6.5 million midfielder right now with the fixtures and everything going forward?
I have to say yes, because he's the guy that I want to bring in this week. I think if I said no, then I'd probably be lying to myself. He's the guy that's sort of been outstanding at that price point. You look at the players that are around there in the top 10. There's only a couple of lads around that price point anyway. It's interesting that Barnes is in there. Leicester score a lot of goals, concede a lot of goals, so it might be worth looking at them again. They're in a high scoring game tonight as well. So Bowen for me is sort of standout at the moment because he's a talismanic sort of figure right now, and he can play out of position.
Yeah. Right, we'll move on to a few more questions, then we'll wrap it up. I'll probably do a TikTok live tomorrow evening, going before the deadline. It's a 6:30 deadline, which is a Friday night kickoff this week. Malamir asks, what is the best Reguilon replacement if the Spurs game is postponed? So the Spurs game definitely is postponed for the weekend, potentially against Leicester as well, but we're not too sure yet. For me, I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to say Dalot at 4.4 million, playing right back United. We look defensively a lot sounder since Rangnick's come in. He's also playing really attacking, Dalot, getting quite high at the pitch. He's cheap. Wan-Bissaka got injured last night, so he's pretty much rotation proof. So I would go with him. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, Dalot. I think it's a standout option. To be honest, I wouldn't really consider anyone else at sort of that price point. Yeah, nothing more to be said about that. I think he's the best option at that point.
Awesome. So here we go. De Gea or Ramsdale as a Sanchez replacement. Who would you go for?
I would go David De Gea at that price. I think Ramsdale and David De Gea are like basically same price point now anyway. For the fixture run, great fixture run. Rangnick is building something good defensively. Varane's coming back in as well, so United are going to be a lot more defensively solid than they previously were, especially with the fixtures as well. I think David De Gea is probably the better option.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. When Varane's played, Man United have looked so much better defensively, and the stats back that up as well. So when he's back, I think he should be back for Norwich. We'll see a lot better defensive performance from United. Who should I prioritise if I have no Chelsea, City, or United defence yet? So who would you go for out of those three?
Oh, first of all, how have you not got any of these lads in? And I would say prioritise getting the City lad in. I'd say overall they've performed the best defensively this season. United, we've seen them dodgy before Rangnick come in. Chelsea's underlying defensive stats have been pretty poor for a top side. So I think City's sort of stand out if you don't have any of them, namely João Cancelo.
Yeah, definitely João. We'll move on to a few more. Get as many as you can in. We'll try and answer as many as we can. Rashford or Sancho? This is an interesting one because they're like the cheaper than Ronaldo options. Who would you go for out of those two?
I'd probably lean towards Rashford, based on the fact that we've seen him play up front. But it's close between those two, it has to be said.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because I saw Rangnick say that Greenwood's number 9, or he's sort of a 9 or something like along those lines. So maybe he looks at playing Greenwood up top. He obviously scored quite a decent goal yesterday against Young Boys. It's going to be interesting to see. The fact that everyone got rested, though, from the game at the Palace, I think he'll probably play the same 11, maybe with Varane coming back in. It's going to be interesting to see who's going to be starting week in, week out, though, for United, because I think there's going to be some value in Rashford and Sancho going forward with this fixture run. They look like they're going to be great options. Here we go. We'll go Vardy to Ronaldo for a -4. Would you make that move?
Oh, I don't know. Is Vardy one of the players that are out? I don't think he is.
No. He might be out next week, though, because if Spurs carry over.
I would I'd almost be tempted to wait. Wait
Leicester
until the
have
press
Newcastle
conferences.
this week.
Just wait until the press conferences and see. Vardy's obviously playing tonight, so there might be other fires in your team that you need to put out, and I'm sure there is, based on how highly owned some of these guys that are out are.
Yeah, honestly, like the fact that Spurs, Brighton, maybe Jota now as well as Tony, it's crazy. I don't think I've ever seen it like this many people being
it's
out.
quickly gone from like 2 players out to 4 in like a day, so it's not good.
Yeah, I'm not going to have a good night deciding what I'm doing tonight. Rafinha or Gallagher out this week. Obviously, Rafinha has City and Chelsea in his next 2. Gallagher he's played so much more defensive in the last couple of weeks. Jeffrey Schlupp's come back into the team, and it's made him drop back a little bit. What would you do in that one?
I'd probably lean towards getting. See, there's both good cases to take him out. I'll go Gallagher out first.
Yeah,
it's 50-50.
I think if Leeds do score, Rafinha's going to be that man.
Yeah.
So, like if Palace score, it's not always going to be Gallagher. So, I think in that respect, the talisman wins every time. We'll take one more question and then we'll wrap things up for today. We'll post injury updates and stuff like that on our Twitter and our Instagram. So make sure you go follow them in the links below. Hwang to King or Reguilon to Dalot for the -4. I think that's a pretty easy one, isn't it, Ben?
I think I'll go Reguilon to Dalot. Dalot's got that chance of getting a clean sheet and a much higher chance of getting an assist as well than other options at that price point. So definitely Dalot.
Yeah, definitely agree. And also Reguilon's not playing this week, and he might not even play against Leicester. So whereas Hwang, like having players that are actually playing is a big, big plus at the minute. So I'll try and avoid taking hits if your team can play. It's just going to be one of those weeks, unfortunately. But yeah, that wraps up our Game Week 16 preview. It just feels like it's just the season's flying by as we're getting into this Christmas period.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, we're always looking forward to the game weeks to come. I think I'm going to hold my transfers for tonight just to see those press conferences tomorrow and then make my decision. But yeah, as always, if you have liked the video, please make sure to give it a big old thumbs up. Make sure to follow us on all of our socials down below. And yeah, as always, I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys